The more you eat.
Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another edition of Budget Magic, and we have a super sweet one this week. We're going to find out if after 2 years of trying, Urborg Lhurgoyf might finally be good enough for standard. We're playing a deck I'm calling Graveyard Beans, maybe Goyf and Beans, in this deck actually inspired by Rooker K-Dog, one of our Twitch stream viewers, who came in with a deck list they were working on that comboed up the Beanstalk with these really expensive creatures like Hollow Marauder, Writhing Necromancer, Huskburster Swarm. They get a discount based on how many creatures are in the graveyard. So this is not Rooker's deck. I built my own version of the deck, but definitely inspired by them. So shout out to Rooker for the original idea of this deck. And the best part of this deck, actually there's two best parts. One is the deck looks really janky, but it's actually oddly good, like you'll see in the videos. Most importantly though, the deck's super cheap. 45 bucks in paper, 2 ticks on Magic Online, 16 total rares and mythics on Magic Arena, and half of those are 4 Fabled Passages, 4 Llanowar Waste in the mana base. So if you already got those, the deck is super easy to put together. So let's talk about our Graveyard Beans deck, jump into some games, see it in action. So the idea of this deck is pretty simple. Step 1, up the Beanstalk. I'm sure you know this card. It's banned in Modern. It's seen quite a bit of play in Standard and like Domain decks or whatever. 2-mana enchantment. When it enters or when we cast a spell mana value 5 or greater, we draw a card. But what we're doing with Up the Beanstalk is very different. We're looking to combo it with these big 7 or 8 mana creatures like Huskburster Swarm, Writhing Necromancer, Hollow Marauder that get a discount based on how many creatures are in our graveyard. So ideally, in the early game, we do a lot of self-milling. We'll talk more about that in a minute. And then we can cast these for 1 mana, but their mana value is technically 7 or 8, so it triggers Up the Beanstalk. So we get all this card advantage. We have this huge combo turn where we cast a bunch of these and build just an absolutely massive board to win the game in just 1 or 2 attacks. And the best part is these are actually pretty good creatures, assuming we can get the cost down. If we're casting them for 7 or 8 mana, they're absolutely unplayable. But if we can get creatures in the graveyard and get the cost down, Huskburster Swarm is often like a 1 mana 6/6 mana Death Touch, Writhing Necromancer, 1 mana 5/5 Death Touch. Hollow Marauder might be my favorite. Often going to be a 1 mana 4/2 flyer that when it enters, our opponent has to discard a card. And if that card isn't mana value 4 or greater, which usually it isn't, we get to draw another card. So that's kind of the core of this deck. Up the Beanstalk, reduce the cost on these cards, cast a bunch of them, draw a ton of cards, make a big board, win the game. Then we have our self-mill stuff. And we have 2 different groups of self-mill cards. First, we have self-mill creatures that also turn into massive threats. Urborg Lhurgoyf, Cruel Somnophage. So these cards get big based on how many creatures are in the graveyard. And since our deck is literally all creatures, outside of Up the Beanstalk and lands, but everything else is a creature, and we're so aggressively self-milling, it's pretty easy for these to end up being like 2 mana 10/10s or something. Plus, they help fill our graveyard to support our primary game plan. So Cruel Somnophage, we can cast Adventure Mode, mill 4, then cast it as a creature. Urborg Lhurgoyf, we can kick it maybe twice to mill 3 cards or 6 cards to fill our graveyard and get this big creature. Then we have just our self-mill stuff. Gnawing Vermin, ETB's mills 2, Blanchwood Prowler, ETB's mills 3, maybe gets us a land. Aftermath Analyst, probably the funniest card in this deck, because people are super scared of this card because of like the Teamer Analyst combo deck and the Golgari Analyst combo deck. People see Aftermath Analyst and think they're gonna die, right? They expect some combo is gonna kill them. Our deck doesn't do that. In our deck, Aftermath Analyst is basically bad Blanchwood Prowler. We're just playing it to mill 3 cards. Honestly, I've played, I don't know, like 8 matches, 9 matches, something like that with this deck. I think I've sacked Aftermath Analyst 1 time, and that's because I just had nothing else going on. But the plan is not to sack this and reanimate our lands. It's just like coming down to block and mill some cards, but it often eats Go for the Throats and good removal spells that our opponent should be saving for like our Huskburster Swarms. So it mills cards and like clears the way for our bigger threats. And that's essentially the deck. Mill, up the Beanstalk, cast a bunch of big creatures on the cheap, draw a bunch of cards, use them to win the game. Mana base, pretty budget friendly. Evolving Wilds, Fabled Passage, Llanowar Waste, some basics. In the sideboard, you probably noticed in our main deck, 0 removal spells. We are all in on our self-mill, beat you down with creature plan, but we do have a bunch of removal in this sideboard. So if we run to aggro, we bring in cut downs, Go for the Throats, Malicious Eclipse, Chupacabra Echoes. For control, we got negates and duresses, and that is Graveyard Beans for standard. That's our budget magic deck for today. So let's jump into some games and see this hilariously effective deck in action. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back in a bit for the wrap up. Need some magic cards? Well, you can snag them from our sponsor, Card Kingdom, over at cardkingdom.com/mtggoldfish. Budget magic time. We are doing some graveyard beans? Goyf beans? I don't even know what to call this deck exactly, but wow. Okay, we're going to mulligan this one. This hand is much better. Maybe Huskburster and Brains? Basically, we're trying to fill our graveyard and cast really big 7-drops for free. Maybe we'll have the Beanstalk on the battlefield. Gnawing Vermin, do a little self-milling, start filling the graveyard. Opponent, red. All right, well, here comes the aggro. What do you got, opponent? What do you got? Monastery Swift Spear, sure. Wow, okay. Well, we will gladly take this trade, kill the Swift Spear, and get the Vermin in the graveyard. Ooh, all right, Hollow Marauder. We need to mill some creatures here. Can't wake up. Wake me up inside. Ooh, 3 creatures milled. Okay, wow. All right, the cost of our 7-drops is down to 2. Heading to turn 3, Heartfire Hero for our opponent, and a Heartfire Hero. A little scary, a little scary. So I kind of want to play Somnophage, get the 6/6 down. We can crack Fable Passage for black, and then double 7-drop next turn. Yeah, I think that's fine. Let's play the... Oh. Okay, that we probably should have played the Swarm there. I wasn't thinking that it cares about things in exile, so now it's 1 more mana because we played the Somnophage off its adventure. I mean, I think we're still okay, though. Let's see how much damage our opponent can get in. I mean, a 6/6 is kind of big against my opponent. Attacks with both. Well, I mean, we're going to block and see what happens. Somnophage in front of the Heartfire Hero. Might of the Meek, sure. Draws a card and pumps. So opponent needs what? Monstrous Rage? And they can kill the Somnophage and hit us for a bunch? I mean, that's fine. We still traded, I guess, and got some cards out of our opponent's. Wow, Felonious Rage. Oh, oops. This is great for us, though, because it doesn't even kill the Somnophage. Like, we're going to take 6, but we kill a Heartfire Hero and our Somnophage. Not only does it die, but it grows. I guess our opponent gets a Detective, but still. And take our beats down to 14. Wow, double Hollow Marauder seems pretty good. 2 mana, 4/2 flying. You discard, and I'm sure we're going to be drawing, right? I don't even think they have cards mana value 4 greater to discard. Wait, is this deck going to work? We have never managed to make Goyf. Oh, speaking of the devil, there's our Urborg Lhurgoyf. Well, let's just play another Marauder. Make you discard. We presumably will draw. All right, another hero and a scamp down. I think we gotta stay on defense 1 more turn. The one way I can see us dying here is if we greedily attack and then our opponent can fling combo us with Heartfire Hero. Once we get rid of the Heartfire Hero, all right, opponent attacks. Well, let's just block with this 9/9 Somnophage. Once this is off the battlefield, then we can start attacking. Might of the Meek. Pump spells to grow the mouse only to have it die does not seem that effective. Opponent pumps it to 6 power with a Monstrous Rage. Hits us to 8. I don't even know what we do here. We can hit our opponent to 2? All right, sideboarding wise, we actually have a lot of good options. We don't really have removal in the main deck, but we have a bunch of removal we can bring out of the sideboard. So we can like do a little bit of trimming of the South Mill, maybe trim like a Swarm or 2 and just bring in the cut downs, bring in the Go for the Throats. Could bring in Malicious Eclipse as well. It's a little risky because of the pump spells, but it's probably still worth it. Yeah, let's try it like that. Maybe like 5 removal spells and just, yeah, we can go down to Beanstalk. I feel like Beanstalk, it is like the sweetest engine in this deck, but we also need to be aware that our opponent's super aggro. I don't know if we have time to like play a Beanstalk against this mono red mouse fling deck. Sounds pretty good. I like the double Gnawing Vermin. Gnawing Vermin's a nice little roadblock. Pain Land, unfortunately. And Gnawing Vermin. Do a little self-milling. All right, not the greatest mills for us. We really want to mill creatures. I mean, I guess milling the 2 lands is good because we don't need more lands, but we really would prefer to mill creatures. Wow, bring it. Come on, attack. With that Malicious Eclipse. Could be a blowout if we can find another black source. Do we want to leave up the Go for the Throw, or do we play a Vermin? The problem is the pump spells, right? If our opponent wasn't a pump spell deck, playing the Vermin would be super easy. It still might just be worth it. Yeah, I think we just, let's just wait. Leaving up the Go for the Throat if they go for a big fling kill seems worth it. Ember Heart Challenger, sure. This gnawing vermin's so good right now. Best rat ever. Wow. Really? Is gnawing vermin the best card in standard? So we had to block a Heartfire hero, kill the challenger, and then when the gnawing vermin dies, kill the other hero? Wow, this is a super good turn for us. Yes. Kill the hero. I mean, we're gonna take a little bit of damage, but whatever. We got through the two scariest creatures on our opponent's, maybe in our opponent's deck. Wouldn't mind drawing a fetch land to get another black source, but we can play another vermin. Continue this elf milling. Well, we finally milled a creature. Oh, the swarm's still very expensive. Well, can't wake up. Mill one more. One more creature. I mean, I guess we get the swarm down next turn still. 6/6 is pretty big. Hopefully, we're still at 14. This is going way better than I would have expected. Opponent, another challenger. Attacking. Well, I mean, we will trade. Swarm's down to 2 mana. Unfortunately, we have to trigger this challenger. Not that it matters too much. If only we had an extra black mana. Well, technically the Somnophage is our biggest creature, so let's just play a casual 2-mana 10/10. And back to you, mice. Tap, oh, there's Up the Beanstalk. Up the Beanstalk. Draw a card. We're doing the thing. Swamp, that's good. Huskburster Swarm, draw another card. Okay, there's all of our black mana, and opponent scoops it up, and wow. Okay, let's just keep doing that forever. Budget magic time. We are so many Up the Beanstalks, so few lands. Oh, we're on the play. Do we have to keep this? Are we going to 5? I don't believe in going to 5. That's against my religion. But I think we have to. All right, well, this is going to be the real challenge. Can we win with a 5-card opening hand? We do have some ways to fill the graveyard, which is good, and a Marauder. But 5 cards is not a ton on the play. Opponent. It's wild how good Savannah Lions have gotten. It's so wild to me. Paw Patch Recruiter, like, this card's not even really a staple or anything. It's fine. But it's Savannah Lions, and it has trample, and it can make a baby, and if you target it, you put a counter on. So it's like, it's Savannah Lions with so much text. Well, let's play a Prowler. Do we take the Swamp? Yeah, I think we can take the Swamp. See if we can avoid the pain. I mean, if our opponent's playing mono green, we'll see how it goes this game, since we did mulligan a lot. But I feel like against mono green, our creatures might just be bigger than their creatures, ideally. Gonna trade old Pawy with the Prowler? Okay, we'll take that, and the 1. Ooh, another Marauder. Yeah, I think we just Goyf. We can kick it once. The other option is like Somnophage. I think we want a blocker here, though. Hopefully Goyf is... Hopefully it mills a creature or two, and it should be big enough to block the Beast Caller. All right, well, milled a creature. These Maulers, or Marauders, can help dig us out of this mulligan if we can get a couple more creatures in the graveyard. Also, Up the Beanstalk would be absurd. I wonder, oh man, I've been trying to make Urborg Lhurgoyf work for like 2 years now. Is this finally the time in standard on a budget? Have we finally done it? Also, this deck's like incredibly cheap. On Arena, it's technically 16 rares, although half of those are the Fabled Passage and the Pain Land. So it's 8 rares without the 2 rare lands. Paper, it's like 40 bucks. It's like so cheap. Outcaster Trailblazer, gonna grow the dork and make a mana. See if they have a fight spell. If they have a fight spell, they can actually, or a bite spell, they can actually take down. Yeah, hard-hitting questions. That is a creature in the graveyard, though. So worst case, we can, ooh, all right, land, crack it. This is interesting. So we can Somnophage Mill. Usually we just want more black mana. We can Somnophage Mill. Assuming we hit a couple creatures, we can double Marauder. Okay, there's the creatures. Let's play the Somnophage. Our opponent, I think, because they have this Trailblazer, should still have cards in hand next turn. The 8/8 is just a way better blocker here. The one reason to play the Marauders now is just to guarantee that our opponent's having to discard, although the fact that we draw anyway helps make up for that downside. Oh, and I think odds are they're still going to have cards in hand to discard next turn. And an 8/8's just like a wall. Sentinels of the Nameless City. It's kind of funny, like, green's supposed to have the biggest, baddest creatures, but our deck, I think, just has way bigger creatures than their deck. We do have to work for it. All right, now there's Sentinels on top. No attacks. Well, this worked out perfectly because now we can make our opponent discard their last 2 cards and probably most likely draw 2 cards. Well, Hollow Marauder, number 1. Why does no one play Hollow Marauder? Now we have 3 of these creatures. They get the discount based on creatures in your graveyard. I feel like that's enough. It kind of reminds me of the like 36 Wrath deck. There's just so much redundancy now because of 3-year standard that I think that you can go all in building around it. With a deck like this, which with only 1 or 2 of the creatures becomes a lot harder because you're not going to have the consistency. Opponent discards. Wow, this is even better. Evolving Wilds. So now we can get their last card and play another 9/9. I don't know how our opponent's gonna stop this. Well, Hollow Marauder, number 2. Opponent, would you like to discard your last card? Oh, it was a Nissa. Okay, we don't get to draw off it. Let's go to combat attack. See if our opponent does some aggressive blocking here. Okay, they're just gonna block, put the counters on something. Although that something is still not gonna be as big as our Somnophage for 2 mana. I think this also takes advantage of the fact that there's not as much graveyard hate now since Teamer Analyst isn't a thing anymore. There used to be too many rest in pieces for a deck like this to really work, but since rotation, I think things have changed. And now we're just like playing Ted-Teds, opponent, Sentinels, sure. A 3/4 for 3, what a quaint little creature. I mean, I think we might just have this. Opponent cracks the map. Top card, Paw Patch Recruiter. Not good enough now. That actually just grows our Somnophages. Thank you, opponent. Opponent passes. Well, let's play the Analyst, mill some cards. Oh, there goes our Up the Beanstalk. Our opponent needs to double chump here, or else they just die, because they're taking 8 in the air, so they can't take either Somnophage hit. And we still have a blocker left over. Opponent blocks, and they can't even kill anything? No, you, okay. Well, when you say have to, I did not consider the we will just take lethal damage line. Our opponent, yeah, decides to go in to kill a Somnophage and dies. I think we mostly just bring in some removals, like Go for the Throat, Chupacabra Echo seems pretty good. Even Cut Down's probably fine. And then do a little trimming. Cut a little top end, a little self mill, and just run it like that, I guess. All right, on to game number 2 against Mono Green. Also worth pointing out, that last game, that was the multi 5. I forgot. We multi 5 that game, and we still multi 5 on the play, and we still, oh, come on, deck. And we still crushed them. We're not going to 5. This hand's fine. It's not thrilling, but it's fine. We don't have any of our big payoffs. Opponent Forest and passes. Well, Evolving Wilds, go. I mean, we can fill the graveyard. Grow the Somnophage. Oh, Keen-Eyed Kill, that's a problem. Oh, that's a big problem. Well, okay, we've run into some graveyard hate. Let's see how this goes. So Keen-Eyed Curator, that's Raccoon Scavenging Ooze. And I don't even know what we do here. I don't even know if it's worth, like, we can play Gnawing Vermin, mill some cards, but then our opponent just eats those cards, and eventually they're going to grow their Curator. I think we just have to wait and try to draw a removal spell, at least for the time being, or, like, at least wait until our opponent taps out for something, and then try to, like, mill a bunch of cards at once, and they hopefully won't be able to exile them all. It's so bad, like, we play Aftermath Analyst, and our opponent just uses all their mana to exile everything that we mill, and works towards growing their Curator. Yeah, that's an issue. Well, come on, Go for the Throat. We need specifically Go for the Throat. Opponent, Goldbane Hydra. All right, well, they're tapped down. We're at 11, though. We're kind of very close to dead. Well, okay, so Graveyard Hate appears to be good against our deck. Gnawing Vermin? Mill a couple cards. Okay, there goes some 7-drops. Fable Passage, crack it. Grab a Forest. And Aftermath Analyst, mill a couple cards. Yeah, I think we're pretty dead here. All right, Keen-Eyed Curator seems very good. Seems very good. Yeah, that seems like a good card against us. Down to 5. We draw a Swarm. Swarm is actually good against our opponent's deck just because it triggers off things in exile as well. So we can play the Swarm. Although we'd rather mill first and trust that we're going to mill enough creatures to still play the Swarm, so we need to hit at least 2 creatures. Also see if our opponent activates... Oh, that was 0 creatures. I mean, I guess we can go again, but this time we need to hit... Yeah, we need to hit like 3 creatures off this Prowler. Odds probably not very high. The Curator doesn't really matter with the Swarm because it cares about exile as well. Yeah, not enough. Not enough. Oh, I mean, we could have just played the Swarm. Maybe it was too greedy to try to mill first. We don't really have more removal that can kill that Curator, so I guess we just run it back. On to game 3. All right, let's dodge the Keen-Eyed Curator. We'll play first. Oh, okay. We finally have an Up the Beanstalk hand, so we're going to draw some cards at least. With 3 lands, we might as well just start on Fabled Passage. Our opponent hasn't... I don't think they've seen Up the Beanstalk, so they might not be playing answers to it. Grab a island and Llanowar Up the Beanstalk, draw a card. All right, Gnawing Vermin. Opponent, land. Keen-Eyed Curator. Always with the Curator. All right, well, Up the Beanstalk, draw a card. And play the Gnawing Vermin. I mean, we're just gonna have to play through it. So I guess the good news in this scenario is if our opponent wants to be exiling cards from our graveyard, that is taking mana that they theoretically want to use for other things. It hits us with a Curator. We would still love to draw a removal spell. A Go for the Throat would still make us very... Really? 2 of them? All right, 2 Curators. Well, let's play a Blanchwood Prowler. So it's actually looking a bit grim. Might as well play the Forest first so we don't have to take damage. Well, do a little milling. And I don't even think we want the land. I think we want this to be a 2/2 because we want to be able to trade with one of these Curators. Found it. Yeah. This could work. We'll see what our opponent does. But, okay, Outcaster Trailblazer, sure. If our opponent doesn't leave up enough mana, we can double block, get our creatures in the graveyard. Okay, they're just gonna eat what's in the graveyard already. I mean, we should be able to play a Necromass next turn, hopefully. Opponent attacks, so we will block and block. Oh, what a blowout. Tiver stand. Okay, this is actually looking kind of bad. Evolving Wilds. Well, I mean, Writhing Necromass, draw 2. Okay, there's a Go for the Throat. There's a Go for the Throat. That's not bad. And we have a 5/5, so we're not dead yet. We could use something else that triggers Up the Beanstalk. Ew, Goldmane Hydra. Yeah. Okay, that's a little scary. Opponent can hit us for a lot of damage here. They can't kill it. Wow, no attacks? Oh, and a Chupacabra echoes. Oh, wow. Wow. Okay, I think our opponent needed to attack us there. They could hit us for what, 9? 11? They could hit us for 11? Yeah, I think if our opponent attacked there, they probably win. But they didn't, so now we're going to try to win. Chupacabra Echoes, kill one of the Curators. As much as Goldmane Hydra and Outcaster Trailblazer are like, in a vacuum, the more powerful cards, because they're drawing cards, making treasures, we got to deal with these Curators, because they are just so good against our deck. And we're going to stay on defense, and we might have stabilized. If we can find anything that triggers Up the Beanstalk, then we're off to the races. With 2 of them on the battlefield, we might actually be able to have a big, like, I don't know, 7-drop Storm, Necromass combo turn. Opponent swings with both now. Okay. Block, kill him. Yeah, those attacks were so weird. Our opponent didn't attack last turn when they could have hit us to 1. Then they attack this turn where all they get some treasures and I guess kill one of our creatures but lose their board. Paw Patch Recruiter, sure. I mean, opponent, okay, they have a Bushwhack, so I get to take down the Necromass. Come on, 7-drop. Oh, Somnophage. I mean, this is still fine. Let's, Evolving Wilds. Let's crack it. See if we can get our last island before we mill it. And now, can't wake up. Do a little milling. All right, milled a couple creatures and play a 10/10. So if they have a Goldmane, that would make last turn's attack kind of make sense. Their Goldmane is not big enough to get through a 10/10 though, if they have one. Axebane, Ferox, sure. So we're gonna wait and just self-mill again, rather than play another 10/10. We are gonna block this. It does have Death Touch, which is awkward, but we have more 10/10s waiting in the wings. Come on, 7-drop. Okay, there we go. Writhing Necromass, that's what we wanted. Beanstalk, draw, and draw. Okay. There's a Marauder. Beanstalk, Beanstalk. Draw and draw into another Marauder. Okay, here's the big combo turn. Make you discard. Get rid of, oh, they did have the Gold Vein Hydra. Up the Beanstalk number 3. Draw. And then play the land. Marauder number 2. Draw, draw, draw. And I think this is over. Oh my goodness, another Marauder too. Well, we'll make you draw a card. I don't even know if we want to play another Marauder now. We don't really need to. Maybe we just play a Goyf and kick it. It's gonna be pretty big. Well, that was a turd. That was a turd. Mill, mill, mill. Past the turd, and I don't think our opponent's gonna get any of these last 9 points of damage. Land passes. Well, let's cut down the paw patch. Just a little off the top. Wow! Maybe this deck is good. It might be that Urborg Lhurgoyf is finally good. Oh, can we keep this? That's a lot of lands. If we mill well, we can get down this Marauder, draw a card. Oh boy, lizards. Whew, all right, well, this is gonna really be up to Cruel Somnophage here. Now that we have 2 big 7-drops, we just need to mill creatures. Also, hopefully our opponent's start isn't too fast. Remember, we don't really play removal in the main deck. Oh no. Okay, take the Swarm, please. Oh, more lands. Okay, this is looking grim. If they take the Somnophage, this is maybe the worst hand I've ever seen. All right, opponent takes the Somnophage. Well, let's crack this Evolving Wilds in the deck. Gonna need some self-mill, and we're gonna need it super quick. If we can somehow get to the Swarm and to the Marauder, life could be good. Okay, Aftermath Analyst, that's good. That's good. That mills cards. Creatures, please. Okay, 2 creatures, and also a bunch of 7-drops that we didn't really want to draw. I mean, if we can just draw another self-mill spell, we might actually be all right here. Maybe. And the Analyst can actually block. Ooh, Vine Lasher with a baby. Well, opponent goes attacking, pings us. We get to block it. The wall of Aftermath Analyst. Another land, okay. Well, land, go. This deck doesn't really plan on sacking Analyst very much. I mean, I guess it's a backup plan where if we can't fill the graveyard with creatures, we could fill it with lands and sack it and ramp into our big stuff, but not really our main plan. Is this Somnophage a problem for us? I guess since it triggers off all graveyards, if we get a full graveyard, it'll also, card draw. It'll also give our opponent a big creature. Opponent gonna pump the Hired Claw, goes to combat, gets in. How have you found Cruel Claw Ice so far? I'm curious how people play it. How often do you gift it? Our opponent like very aggressively gifted it on turn 2. I feel like a lot, boy, it's so dependent. I really like the card. I think gift is a very skill testing mechanic. I think Cruel Claw Ice is one of the most skill testing cards. Well, there's an Up the Beanstalk. Can we live long enough for it to matter? So we play the Beanstalk, hopefully draw a self-mill card. Oh, another Swarm. Man, this hand would have been sweet if we still had that Somnophage to fill the graveyard. Opponent land. But as it is, this Aftermath Analyst defense is not going to hold up for that long. Ooh, Laughing Jasper Flint. I mean, we can play a 7-drop next turn. I think it's just going to be a little late. Opponent swings with everything. Oh no, they got the Lizard Pump spell? Yeah, all right. Well, opponent's out of cards. Unfortunately, we are about out of life. Opponent temporarily draws a card. Cruel Claw Ice. Can't cast it. All right, that doesn't do anything. Even more lands. Well, I mean, draw a card and scoop it up. Yeah, there's just too many bodies. Too many bodies. Well, we have some good sideboard cards. Get to bring in all the removals. Do a little. Normally, when it comes to sideboarding with this deck, there's no real tried and true method. I mostly just do some trimming. Like, bring in the removal is necessary, and then trim like a couple of 7-drops, a couple of mill spells, and hope for the best. Okay, this is fine. Got a removal spell, couple of mill spells, and a Marauder. I feel like Marauder is actually a good card. To the point where I'm kind of like, I don't know. I mean, yes, you gotta fill your graveyard and have a bunch of creatures, but I'm still kind of confused why it doesn't see more play. All right, there's Vine Lasher and dead. Well, let's do some milling. Aftermath Analyst. Mill 3 and okay, 2 creatures. That's good. And they're gnawing vermin that we don't really need at the moment. Opponent land. I think one of the questions for this deck is it worth playing any creatures in the main deck? Value, or any removal spells in the main deck? Ooh, up the beanstalk. My concern is we know they have discard. Long-term up the beanstalk is very, very powerful. But if they had discard, they probably would have cast it over the rock caller, which doesn't do much. Let's just play the analyst, fill the graveyard. Okay, 2 more creatures. I mean, in our dream world, we could have a turn where we like up the beanstalk into the Marauder all in the same turn. Opponent land, no discard. No discard, please. We want this up the beanstalk. Opponent gonna go attacking for 0. I mean, we're going to double block. If they spend their turn casting a pump spell to kill an analyst, that's actually a win for us because that's a creature in the graveyard to reduce the cost of this Marauder. And then we just beanstalk Marauder. So we're hoping, yes, okay. Thank you, opponent. Thank you for filling our graveyard. Well, now we get to play the swamp, play the up the beanstalk, and draw a card. Yes, Writhing Necromancer is good. Well, let's play the Marauder. Draw a card. ETB, make you discard. I don't know if they have any 4+ drops, so we probably draw another card. That's one of the nice things about Aftermath Analyst is, wow, and a Swarm too. One of the nice things about Aftermath Analyst is people are very scared of it. So in a deck like this, where we're mostly just playing as a mill card, people tend to focus on killing it way more than they need to because they know what it does in other decks. So they get the fear that we're going to do some crazy land shenanigan thing when really this is just like, aw, we kind of wanted all of our 7 drops. All right, Thoughtseize Lizard. When really it's just milling. So we get some free, wow, another up the beanstalk. Okay, this might be sweet. So, number 2, draw a card. Oh, no. Writhing Necromancer, draw 2 cards. That was a good draw. And how about Writhing Necromancer, draw 2 more cards? Once the deck gets rolling, it feels really good. Get it, hit ya with the flyer down to 18. Marauder's also a 4/2 flyer, which is not like insane stats, but Laughing Jasper Flint, eh? I mean, we could do like, oh, we don't even have triple black. I was going to say we could like Eclipse plus cut down and kill most of our opponent's stuff, but I think we just keep making massive creatures and drawing lots of cards. What's our opponent going to exile? A bunch of Writhing Necromancers and self-mill cards that don't really do anything for him. Opponent discards another pump spell. We'll play the land. Eclipse is actually kind of awkward here because it kills all of our Marauders. Let's attack. Down to 4. Let's Goyf 1 kicker. And then we still have cut down and we still have gnawing vermin. Play the gnawing vermin. I think we just kill the squirrel valley rock collar or whatever. Get rid of that because that can actually just drain us for a bunch. And I don't know how we lose from here. Opponent, Laughing Jasper Flint, gonna exile some of our cards. Go for the throw. That's actually like a sort of relevant card. But we're just like, we're incredibly far ahead now. Double up the beanstalk. So much card advantage. Go for the throw. Takes down the Goyf. Can you kill both the Marauders? No. Opponent scoops it up. Well, that went a lot better. All right, let's run it back. Game number 3. We're gonna be on the draw this time. Okay, we have the control hand. We're gonna try the control hand. Let's see how good Malicious Eclipse really is against lizards. Ooh, and up the beanstalk. I feel like Malicious Eclipse should be very good against lizards. There is if our opponent goes all in on this Hired Claw, which probably they won't, but that could be a problem. If they just start like pumping it, don't pump it. You wanna play 2 toughness creatures, please. As many as you want. Well, let's crack the Eat Valving Wilds. We're gonna grab the island. All right. Burning Tree Emissary Gecko, sure, makes a couple mana. And Valley Rock Collar, that actually has enough toughness to survive our Malicious Eclipse. Well, let's Aftermath Analyst mill some cards. Oh, don't pump the lizard. As long as they don't pump the Hired Claw. Also, Laughing Jasper Flint would be a problem here. Another 3 toughness. Wow, okay. Main phase Gecko activation is about the most we could hope for. Opponent attacks. We will block. So we dropped to 12, but... Wait, did they just discard the land and then miss their land drop? Let's Malicious Eclipse. Kill everything except the Rock Caller. Oh, I guess we should have attacked for 1 first, technically. I mean, the Rock Caller doesn't do much if there's not other creatures on the battlefield, which is good. Pound it. Combat. Gets in. Hits us. Oh, they did make the land drop, right? Okay, that makes sense. Can't actually stop it. I think just play the Evolving Wilds. Crack the Evolving Wilds. The downside of this hand is we have not really managed to get many creatures in the graveyard. Let's grab a forest, so we hopefully stop taking so much damage. Up the Beanstalk. I bet our opponent's gonna be afraid of this now. After what it did last game, it really, Up the Beanstalk popped off last game. I feel like they're holding the Indestructible Lizard Pump spell, because it seemed like they thought about casting it last turn. There was that little pause once they attacked. Yev, okay. Sure. Malicious Eclipse can get rid of that. I feel like they have it. They might not. We're gonna go for it either way, I think. Cut down? Oh, they have a go for the... See, the fear of the Aftermath Analyst. Okay, that's fine. That is fine. Well, I mean, we're doing this the hard way. Let's play the Swamp. Malicious Eclipse. Kill the Gap. Pass the turn. Had to play the Swamp to avoid taking extra damage there for no reason. Well, not the most exciting Necromass I've ever seen, but... We will take a 5/5 for 5 right now, like we're playing limited. Draw a card. Even more lands. All right, Necromass. Now we're in slap fight mode. Opponent's deck's not doing much. Our deck, come on, 7-drop. Well, that is the opposite of a 7-drop, but better than drawing a land. Gnawing Vermin. And play the land. At this point, we want to try to win the race, I guess, before our opponent draws out of this opponent. Can you find a lizard? Hired Claw, okay. And we will crack the Fable Passage, keep thin in the deck. Could really use something to trigger up the Beanstalk. We're not in bad shape, though. We're not in bad shape. Opponent passes. Somnophage, all right. I mean, Somnophage isn't bad here, because... Actually, you know what? Let's attack first. I think we just attack with both? Because our opponent's at 16. If we get in for 6... Our opponent's at 10. 2 Necromass attacks will do it. Oh, they do have the Lizard Pump spell too. I knew it. I wasn't wrong. Okay. They had the Lizard Protection spell and also a removal spell. That makes sense. Well, can't wake up. Wake me up inside. Somnophage. Gonna be a casual 6/6. And that's pretty big. Pretty big against a Hired Claw. Opponent. Ooh, just a land. I mean, the land that gives haste is not bad for our opponent. I guess out of all the lands they could draw, that's probably one of the better ones, but I don't think it's enough. Our opponent's not dead this turn, but how do they get back in the game here? Combat. We'll leave back the Gnawing Vermin. That 1 damage doesn't really matter. Opponent Reno, taking the beats down to 7. Gnawing Vermin, do a little milling, and... Our opponent needs a draw that I'm not sure exists. I don't even know what a lizard deck could draw here that's going to get him out of it. Opponent untaps and draws, and it is just... All right, in our opponent's defense, they did kind of flat out there, but it's another win. This deck's crushing it. Top 150. Top 150 with the jank. I am amazed at how well this deck's doing. So... Here's the story of this deck so far. I played 1 test game before I started recording just to see how it felt. We got crushed. Wasn't even close. To the point where I was like, do I even record with this deck? Like, is this deck just a disaster? Is this deck just a disaster? Is it even worth it? And I just said, you know what? We'll give it a try. We'll give it a try. It's a cool idea. So, started recording, and so far, we've won 3 in a row, and we're up in top 150 Mythic somehow, so it has worked better than I thought. Opponent leads on a mountain. Double up the Beanstalk. This hand might be sweet. We don't have any 7-drops, but once we find a 7-drop, the question is against aggro, presumably, do we need to run out the Gnawing Vermin, or can we get away with playing the tap land? I think we want to play the Gnawing Vermin. Gnawing Vermin seems like a pretty good roadblock against red. So if they play like Ember Heart Challenger or whatever, this just trades with it, or our opponent can't attack with it. The -1/-1 when it dies lets it trade up in this really weird but oddly effective against aggro way. And we've even seen it be a 2-for-1 sometimes, where we can like block and kill something and snipe another X1. I mean, maybe they just shock it or something. All right, well, we milled a couple of creatures. That's good. We do want creatures in the yard. Opponent untaps and wow. Okay, Ember Heart. Wow. All right, well, that is exactly what we were talking about playing the Gnawing Vermin. Okay, so that is why you play the Gnawing Vermin. It trades up with 2 toughness hasty creatures. Let's play the land, and I think we just do a little prowling here. Hopefully mill some more creatures. Well, 1 more creature. Yeah, we'll take the island. I think we'd rather have a land than an extra power and toughness on the board. Although keep it in mind, like with Prowler, that's not a given in this deck. There are, oh, not Slick Shot. Okay, Ruckus, that's fine. That's fine. Well, let's play the land first. Evolving Wilds, crack Evolving Wilds, draw a card. We're like 1 self-mill spell away from potentially just popping off here with these Up the Beanstalks with a Swarm and a Writhing Necromass. Well, Up the Beanstalk, draw a card. No attacks. About it. All right, more lands. Fires up the Mishra's Found. Wow, okay. Mishra's Foundry is like the worst thing to have to go all in on. Opponent hits us for 5, but then everything's gonna fall off. They do get to draw a card with the Ruckus. This is a big Analyst. If we can Analyst mill, if we can hit 3 creatures, we're like in dreamland. What we're probably gonna end up doing here, most likely, I think. We're still at 15, right? And our opponent, clear sign of weakness that they have no creatures in hand. So I think we're pretty much guaranteed to Aftermath Analyst, mill, okay, 2 creatures, and then we're just gonna play the Up the Beanstalk. We could start running out the big creatures, but getting down the second Beanstalk means next turn. Next turn's gonna be a turn. Next turn's gonna be a turn, and I'm not feeling too threatened, because if our opponent had anything possibly good to do, they would not be putting their equipments in demonic ruckuses on a creature land. That is a pretty good sign that our opponent does not have much going on. Although the haste lands are a bit scary. Something off the top, opponent's thinking. Okay, are we thinking about how many pump spells to throw at our foundry? Ooh, Manifold Mouse. Okay. I mean, that's fine, though, because we're about to make some big creatures. Manifold Mouse with a baby. Sure. Let's just Necromass. I was thinking about playing the Somnophage first to mill, but I think this is fine. Necromass, draw 2. Huskburster Swarm, draw 2. Land, Huskburster Swarm, draw 2. So janky, but like, look at this board. What are 2 Manifold Mice gonna do now? Like, we have a 5/5, 2 6/6s, and a couple of dorks. Like, an opponent agrees and scoops it up. This deck actually feels oddly effective against aggro. It seems like it shouldn't be effective against aggro, but it turns out that we can just put these big bodies into play, and even with all the pump spells, it's hard for those like prowessy mice style decks to actually get through our bodies because they're just so big. They end up having to spend like 2 pump spells to trade with one of our 7 drops that we're actually casting for 1 mana and probably drawing us a bunch of cards. We're gonna sideboard like normal for a creature matchup, which is bring in a bunch of removal, trim a couple top end things, trim a couple self-mill things, maybe 1 Up the Beanstalk. I think against super aggro, Up the Beanstalk's great in this deck, but against very aggro decks, I think going down to 3 is fine. Because sometimes, especially with us being on the draw here, there is a risk that it's just going to be too slow and we're just going to get run over. Opponent, Heartfire Hero. Well, that's fine because we have the best 1-drop in Standard. Gnawing Vermin, the unbeatable. Oh, we milled 2 lands, okay. There is some variance to the milling, right? Like, if we mill lands and not creatures, it does make it harder to cast our necromances. Oh dear. This is the mouse start we're scared of. Heartfire Hero into Manifold Mouse. That is what the mice want to do. Double strike means we can't even trade with it because it won't take damage. Oh, even more lands. Well, can't wake up. Mill me 1 creature. Ooh, okay. Well, we milled 6 cards. 1 of them are creatures. And we might just, we might be getting run over by these mice. Well, let's trade with this Manifold Mouse at least. Oh god. Okay. Bane Splitter. Wow, we're just dead. Okay, well, ye old turn 3 mouse kill. Now this is why Monstrous Rage is a $7 uncommon now. We're on the play for game 3, which is good. That is where we would prefer to be. Can we keep our winning streak alive? Yes, we will play first. All right, this hand's actually pretty good. Double Gnawing Vermin, 2 7-drops. Hopefully these vermin are nice enough to mill some creatures and not lands like last game. Well, swamp and do a little non. Mill a couple cards. All right, 1 creature. The go for the throw we wouldn't mind drawing, but opponent land and Monastery Swiftspear. No attacks. Well, Gnawing Vermin. Mill a couple cards. The Wall of Rats. Might as well Fabled Passage, I guess. Attacking is probably a little aggro here. This makes it likely that we can kill the Swiftspear. All right, there's even with pump spells. Monstrous Rage, that's fine. I guess if they have another pump spell. The other upside of this is it's gonna get 2 more creatures in the graveyard. We'd rather have the rats in the graveyard now than on the battlefield because it's gonna reduce the cost of our Necromass so we can get that down next turn. So our opponent is gonna keep the Swiftspear. A decent chunk of damage, actually. Yeah, opponent hits us to 14. Just enough pumping to survive. Ah, the -1/-1. Good news is, I think we have to Necromass here. As much as I love Marauder, and it's super good, I think we just need this Necromass to trade with this Swiftspear. Nice thing about Necromass is it does have Death Touch. So even if our opponent goes pumps up all pump spells, I don't think they have a way to get first strike. All right, Monstrous Rage, sure. And, wow, so many Monstrous Rages. Yup, but the Death Toucher takes it down, and we get a go for the throw. Well, let's play the Marauder, make you discard, draw a card. Go for the throw, it's a nice draw. It doesn't kill the creature land, sadly, because it's an artifact, but opponent, what are we pitching? All right, discards a mountain. Ooh, in a swarm for next turn. All right, wow, we might actually be beating aggro. Is this deck just good? Did we accidentally like stumble upon a budget deck that's actually just, it looks so janky. It looks so janky. The idea is even so janky, but it's working. Get in with the Marauder, hit ya. Down to 16. Do a little Huskburstering. Get down the swarm and pass the turn, and opponent found the graveyard 8, but it's just too late to matter. We already have the 6/6 and the 4/2 down, so yes, go ahead, exile our graveyard, which our opponent will. I almost wonder if they should just draw here. Like, the graveyard damage has been dealt at this point. If our graveyard's locked down at this point, it doesn't really matter. Ooh, plus we draw an Urborg Lhurgoyf. The question is, how far do we go with it? We could double kick it. I actually don't know if there's a way we lose from here, but probably something with haste, and then, so if we get in for 6 here, leave back the Marauder. Next turn we have lethal. Play the Goyf. I think we just kick once. I think we're gonna play it safe. We're gonna play it safe. Just kick it once. Leave up the go for the throw. The way I can see us losing, mill a couple cards, would be like haste creature pump spell, something like that would be the. All right, lightning strike down to 6. But with the go for the throw it up, the haste creature is no longer much of a threat. Like that. Okay, there's the challenger. Yup. I think they're dead, right? Because the swarm has menace. Opponent triggers, draws nothing of relevance, goes combat attacks. I mean, I guess we'll kill it. Doesn't really matter, but dead mouse and untap and swing, and that's 4. That's 4 in a row. That's 4 in a row. We are going for the 5-0 sweep at top 100-ish mythic with Goyf and Beans, some graveyard up the beanstalk, 12 7+ drop deck. Opponent, oh boy, Golgari. Well, this is the ultimate test. We have reached the end boss of standard. Golgari midrange, current most popular deck in the entire format. Can our janky ultra budget deck keep up? We have a lot of Aftermath analysts. So what do we got to worry about? Bat coming down to take our beanstalk. We do need the beanstalk at some point. I like that. All right, opponent's going to cut down the analyst. I like that people are so afraid. We talked about this before. They're so afraid of Aftermath analyst. Ooh, Preacher of the Schism. We milled 2 7-drops, which is also a little awkward because we kind of want those with up the beanstalk, but we can play up the beanstalk, draw a card. But then they could play Glissa, and then we're very sad. Maybe we just play Prowler this turn. Let's play Prowler, fill the graveyard. Yeah, we'll take the swamp. Play the swamp, pass the turn. Next turn we can double Aftermath Analyst. Bona gets in. Yeah, double trouble. The most brutal Preacher. I think we blocked the Preacher. It's a creature in the graveyard, and it keeps our opponent from having the highest life total. So we can play fully powered Goyf, but then they just kill it. I think we're gonna bait with double Aftermath Analyst, because I feel like people get so scared of this card. They're gonna try to kill him. They're gonna try to kill him. So mill, couple of creatures, and another 7-drop. Yeah, let's just play another Analyst. Oh, yeah, that kind of, oh, this mana, all right. Yeah, taking that one actually kind of sucks there, because now it's 19-19 and our opponent gets to double trigger their Preacher again. Oh, we were trying to play around that, but I mean, we can't just not play a second green spell. All right, well, I told you people are extra afraid of Aftermath Analyst. Opponent kills both of them, which is not good for us, but it does increase our odds of this Urborg Lhurgoyf eventually staking. Opponent gets in, triggers, draws a card, and makes a 1. Preacher of the Schism, so good. Ooh, Aclazotz. Okay, life's getting worse, another land. Well, up the beanstalk, draw something good. So I think the way we can get back into this, we're gonna have to take the beats. You know what, let's play a Goyf. Let's play a Goyf. I was tempted to just play second Beanstalk and then hope we draw into a 7-drop. Oh, we would have drawn into 2 7-drop. Oh. I mean, there's a bat. I mean, we can't really do anything about that. Milling is random, but it is awkward to see that we would have drawn the 7-drops and chained them together had we played up the Beanstalk. You really have another removals? Oh, golly gee. All right. Well, this was a massacre. Has the fun come to an end? For our budget deck, Aclazotz, huge attack, makes a bat, down to 7. We draw another up the Beanstalk. I mean, we're going to play it. 7-drop? How about a 7-drop? Gnawing Vermin. All right. Well, that was not especially close. Wow. All right. A few removal spells. Chupacabra Echoes, go for the throat. Do a little trimming. I don't think we're going to bring in the cut downs. Try it something like that, I think. Down a game, but we're on a play. Can we get the perfect 5-0 run? We will play first. All right. No black mana is scary, but I like that we have the up the Beanstalk. I like that we have the 7-drops. We have a Cruel Somnophage to fill the grave. Don't duress. We wanted our beans. Well, can't wake up. Mill. Okay, 3 creatures. That's something. Oh boy. Well, we said that Golgari was the end, and a bat too. We said that Golgari was the end boss, and it's looking like Golgari is living up to its reputation so far. I guess black mana is our best draw, and then at least we can play something next turn. Wow, opponent's gonna take the. All right, well, Valving Wilds go. Opponent's gonna take the Gnawing Vermin. I guess their hope is to keep us from casting our big things cheaply. There's the Preacher of the Schism. Well, crack this. If this Preacher starts snowballing, that's really bad for us. Get a land. Opponent gets in, hits us. Well, okay. Howl Marauder is a little less exciting at 4 mana, I will admit. But, what else are we gonna do? Howl Marauder, make you discard. All right, another man, if we had that up the Beanstalk, we would be almost where we want to be. If our opponent attacks with a Preacher, we are going to try to trade. We just cannot let that. All right, opponent's going to kill it. All right, here comes the Preacher snowball. Opponent gets in, draws a card, hits us. Gnawing Vermin A. Well, Howl Marauder. And Gnawing Vermin. Gnawing Vermin's actually kind of nice here. We get to self-mill, which is good. It also means if our opponent attacks with a Preacher, then Vermin can kill the bat. Haha, that duress isn't as good. Duress should not be good against us at all. We're almost an exclusively creature deck. No. Okay, Pillage, okay. Pillage, I thought they were killing the Marauder. And if they killed the Marauder, that's really tough, because then this Preacher keeps snowballing. We will trade. If we get a chance to trade, we will trade. Opponent attacks. Yeah, well, we're going to try to block. We got to get this off the battlefield. Opponent's draw too many cards. The cost of our stuff down to 1. Unfortunately, no up the Beanstalk. That got discarded, but 6/6 Death Touch Menace, 5/5 Death Touch, Aftermath Analyst, mill some cards. I guess we're going to hold on to this Forest. Our opponent's been casting a lot of duresses. They could play a Battered Duress or something to try to get our last card. Tranquil Frill, oh, thank goodness. All right, so opponent found Graveyard Hate and Tranquil Frill back. The good news is, I mean, it does shut down the Somnophage. The good news is, though, it's a turn too late because we already got the 6/6 and the 5/5 down. Opponent gets in with the bat. Now our opponent needs to be able to deal with these big bodies on the battlefield. Well, mill a couple cards, go to combat, hit ya. Wow, gonna trade. Okay, this is fine. Because now we get back we can kill the bat, get rid of the lifelinker, get back another vermin, also gets more creatures in the graveyard to eventually make this Somnophage into a real boy. Actually, it's still a 4/4. That's actually still bigger than the Tranquil Frill back. Somnophage is nice just because it cares about our opponent's graveyard. So it does get around Graveyard Hate a little bit in some matchups. Wow, opponent scoops it up. Okay, wait. We're one game away. We're one game away from 5-0. Taking down the best deck in Standard. All right, here we go. Game number 3 for the perfect 5-0. Top 100-ish Mythic with the ultra budget Urborg Lhurgoyf deck. This hand actually looks kind of fine. We're keeping it. We don't have Up the Beanstalk or anything, but we can fill the graveyard. We got a Huskburster Swarm. Huskburster. I don't know why I can't say that word. Huskburster Swarm. Opponent Fabled Passage. It's a swamp. Well, we will play a swamp and Gnawing Vermin. Mill a couple cards. Forest for our opponent and Deep Cavern Mat. All right, that's a good one. What did they take here? Prowler is the thing we can do next turn. Swarm is the biggest long game play. Are gonna take the Swarm. Well, let's. I think we just keep filling the graveyard. Play the Prowler. Mill a couple cards. Aw, there goes our Up the Beanstalk. Do we want the land? Let's take Fabled Passage. Down to 19. Can we dodge a Preacher of the Schism for once in our dang lives? Found it. Hits us. Back down to 19. Liliana the Veil. Liliana's kind of fine. Liliana, I mean, we can't let it ultimate. We definitely can't let it ultimate, but we'll just pitch the Forest. We have useless bodies to sacrifice, and we don't mind cards going in the graveyard, so it's actually not the end of the world. Well, that's Aftermath Analyst. Mill a few cards, and Evolving Wilds. Go. And this is also making our opponent discard cards, which is good for us. Kills. I'm telling you, people got the fear. They got the fear of the Analyst. Opponent kills the Analyst rather than holding onto the removal for a real card. What our opponent doesn't know is Aftermath Analyst is literally worse Blanchwood Prowler in our deck. It's like we don't activate it. We haven't activated it once. It's just, I mean, yes, it's gonna happen on rare occasions, I guess, but it really is like worse Blanchwood Prowler in very close to 100% of our games. And there's another one anyway. Well, go to combat, hit the Lily. This actually works out kind of nice because we can play the Analyst, mill some cards. And now we can, I think we're gonna mill here. We can mill, Somnophage gonna go into exile. And now we have no cards in hand. So if our opponent takes up Lily, it's just gonna hurt them. See, like even now, Analyst, yeah, maybe we'll sack it at some point because we got nothing else. Okay, well, odds of sacking it going down. I also want to point out, it's not like we have faced 0 Graveyard Hate. Thankfully, Rest in Peace is not much of a thing at the moment, but we played against Mono Green with Keen-Eyed Curator, beat it. Our opponent's drawn Tranquil Philbrack 2 games in a row now. If our opponent blocks, we get to... Wow, I think this is a mistake for our opponent. I don't know if they read the Swarm, because Swarm triggers off exile, right? So we get to kill the bat, get back the Swarm, play the Swarm, play the Somnophage, even though it's not very big at the moment, and play the land. But this time the Frillback was fast enough. The Frillback came before we were able to put a bunch of stuff on the battlefield. Oh boy. Innkeeper's Talent, that card is scary. Opponent takes it up, putting counters on the dorks. We draw nothing. So this Innkeeper's Talent is scary. So we can kill the Lily. Actually, I think we gotta go face. Because what happens here, opponent's gonna be able to level up this Innkeeper's Talent, which more or less means if they ever draw a Vraska for sure, or most likely another Lily, we just lose. So I think we need to focus on killing our opponent and let this Lily go for now. Maybe we can deal with it eventually. At some point, we're gonna need to nugget a little bit so it doesn't ultimate. Opponent also draws a land. fully leveled up. So now I get two. The menace on this swarm is actually very relevant here. Ticking up. It's also funny, you can see our opponent thinking, well, if they don't care enough to attack our Lily, do I care enough to keep the Lily? Should I just tick down and kill something? I don't think next turn they might, but this turn, probably not worth it. Well, we untap. Urborg Lhurgoyf's actually a draw here. That is actually a draw. Is this Urborg Lhurgoyf's redemption arc? Here it is. After so many failed attempts, coming down, mills a couple of creatures. I think this might set us up for lethal next turn, potentially. Hit ya, down to 9. I mean, I think this is lethal if our opponent doesn't top deck. Opponent, Mosswood Dread Knight draws a card. Is this enough to keep our opponent alive? So I can play the Dread Knight, which lets him block the Menacing Swarm. Ooh, Virtue Persistence, back up to 10. Found it. Gonna take it down. Well, we will definitely sacrifice this Prowler, which does grow our dorks. Opponent gets to put counters on the Dread Knight. Interesting. That is not bad. There's nothing for our opponent to discard, but it is a flyer. And we get to draw another card, which is Writhing Necromass. Okay. Well, let's go to combat. We're gonna push with the crew. I think we are gonna lose the Goyf. They're gonna lose something, right? They're gonna lose something. Opponent blocks and blocks. So they lose the Dread Knight. We lose the Goyf. Dread Knight to the graveyard. Opponent goes to 4. Run out the Necromass. The top deck of the century. No Vraska, no Vraska, no Vraska. Land. It's a land. Opponent gets a redraw. They get a redraw. Vraska could still do it. Opponent. Is it a Vraska? Is it a Vraska? And opponent scoops it up. And we took down the best deck in Standard with Urborg Lhurgoyf and 12 7-drops on a budget. Well, this deck worked way better than I thought. So what did we learn this week about Goyf and Beans for Standard? And this deck, unbelievably, like literally I cannot believe it, was actually super duper good. So I told the story a little bit while we were playing. The first test match I played with this deck, I built the deck, put it together, jumped into a game, wasn't recording it, just wanted to see how the deck felt. We got absolutely crushed. So bad that I almost just gave up and was like, all right, I'll find another deck to play for Budget Magic. But I was like, you know what? Let's give it a try. I turned on the recordings, started playing, and we just won 7 matches in a row. So overall with the deck, we're 7-1 for an 88% match win percentage, and we're doing all this up to like top 100 mythic. We're between top 200 and 100 mythic as we're doing it. So it's not like we're just crushing people at gold or something. We were beating people literally at the highest ranks of mythic with this pile, and the deck actually, oddly, somehow that I don't quite understand, it really works. It turns out, if we run into all those aggro decks, just the ability to play these like 1 mana 6/6s, 1 mana 5/5s is really good. And then we played against some of the mid-rangey decks like Golgari, and we managed to just outgrind them with Up the Beanstalk and these big creatures. So even though the deck looks hilariously janky on paper, in practice, it actually played super duper well. So I love this deck. Finally, we've been trying to make Urborg Lhurgoyf work literally since it was printed. Every single time a new set comes out, we're like, all right, we're going to make Urborg Lhurgoyf work. And every time we fail miserably. Now, finally, thanks to getting rotation and most importantly, getting Huskburster Swarm, that's really the card that did it. I think it's finally at a point where the deck can work. And I think the key here is redundancy. It reminds me in some ways of the 34 Wrath deck that we played a while ago, where because we now have these super big standard formats with an exterior cards in them, we just get more redundant effects. And now that we have not just Writhing Necromass, but also Hollow Marauder, and also Huskburster Swarm, we have so much redundancy that we can really go all in building around this pretty niche effect and actually have it be consistent and have it be successful. So the deck, it's actually oddly effective. It's super cheap to put together. The one word of warning I will say is if the meta shifts to people playing more like Rest in Peace Hard Graveyard Hate, then this deck is going to get a lot worse. But as we saw in our videos, we are playing against Tranquil Frillrex, we played against Keen-Eyed Curator, like we were playing against the most popular graveyard hate in the format right now, and it actually wasn't enough to stop us. Like look at our last match against Golgari, the best deck in the meta right now. They had Tranquil Frillback in game 2 and in game 3, and we're able to still win through the Tranquil Throwback, coming down to exile our graveyard. Either we can just get big things down before the graveyard gets exiled, because once we start playing like Huskburster Swarms, Howler Marauders, Writhing Necromass, then if our opponent nukes our graveyard, like, yeah, we're sad because our Lhurgoyfs are small, our Somnophages are small, but really it doesn't matter. So that's one possibility. The other possibility is, as we saw, we can kind of rebuild pretty quickly. We just have so much self-mill in the deck that if our opponent has like Tormod script style, a Tranquil Throwback graveyard hate, they can wipe our graveyard, and then we just like kick another Lhurgoyf, maybe cast another Cruel Somnophage, and next thing you know, we're back to doing our thing. What will wreck us though is if people start playing Rest in Peace and just like that kind of graveyard hate, then things are going to get way worse. But until then, Graveyard Beans oddly seems like a really fun and super effective budget deck for Standard. So that is Goyf and Beans, Graveyard Beans for Standard. That's been our budget magic for this week. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will talk to you soon.